Welcome to Christian Truth in our series, God's Medicine. Today we're going to talk about MTHFR. And we're going to talk about MTHFR because if you're within the sound of my voice or you're able to watch this video, I guarantee that either you or someone you know is affected by MTHFR. And not only that, I will bet that somebody you know is greatly affected by MTHFR. And that's because the geneticists who study this genetic mutation estimate that 50% of the population have MTHFR. And MTHFR will eventually, in most cases, lead to cancer. But there's a whole host of other symptoms, which we'll get into right now, which will show you why you need to know about this genetic mutation. If you know anyone who is chronically ill, has an autoimmune disorder, or any kind of addiction, MTHFR is going to be highly implicated. So I just pulled this, you can see at the top, this is off of Dr. Josh Axe's website, draxe.com, sorry. And so I just wanted you to be able to see the page up there that this is Dr. Axe's information here, his list of symptoms. But you can see we're dealing with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, autoimmune disorders, thyroid disorders, of course, like Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, addictions, alcohol and drug dependence, for example, chronic pain disorders, migraines, heart problems, including low HDL or low good cholesterol and high homocysteine levels, hormonal problems, fertility problems, including miscarriages and PCOS, pulmonary embolisms, fibromyalgia, diabetes, chronic fatigue, Parkinson's, other tremor disorders, Alzheimer's disease, strokes, digestive problems, including irritable bowel syndrome, problems during pregnancy, including preeclampsia and postpartum depression. I can also add to this list, a whole host of mineral imbalance conditions which lead to behavioral problems, rage, manic depressive, psychosis. So if you have any family history of any so-called mental problems or behavioral problems or chronic disease problems, if you have a history of cancer in your family, a history of heart attacks and strokes, then you definitely want to look into this MTHFR genetic mutation. Okay, so whenever I see any history of suicides, addictions, heart attacks, cancer, autoimmune disorders, anytime I see somebody with any symptoms of liver, kidney, or adrenal symptoms, I always think of MTHFR first. And there's quite a few of us who have gotten so good at recognizing it, we can almost talk to somebody for a few minutes or look at them and pretty much tell that they have MTHFR. And so the questions would be, what is it? Well, MTHFR is basically an inability to break down folic acid. Now, Folic acid is a man-made chemical, and it often gets confused with folate. Folate and folic acid are two very different things. Folate, or more specifically methylfolate, is natural. It's found in foods, and folic acid is man-made, and it is added into, at least in the United States and many other countries, all the white flour. So anything that says enriched, any processed foods, anything that you buy prepackaged or pre-made, normally has some white flour in it or is enriched. And in the enrichment, they put in folic acid. So you can see how that would be a huge problem. Okay, so if the problem is that we can't break down this man-made chemical, it would seem, well, let's just not eat it. Let's not consume it. Well, that's kind of difficult to do, number one, because it's in so many of our foods. But number two, because it's not quite that simple. Protocols will tell you, well, you know, instead of eating folic acid, you need methylfolate, so just supplement with methylfolate. But the problem is that it's usually not just methylfolate. And so, further, the protocol says, well, you need all of your methyls. You need to get your methyl groups. And so people will begin to start taking their methyl groups and supplementing with the ones that they're told to supplement with, and that can very quickly lead into overmethylation, which has its own dangers and risks. So it's a little bit more complicated than can be done in a 15-minute video, which is why a lot of my videos run so long, because it's just a little more complicated than it may appear on first glance. For example, some people may begin to take their methyls and maybe they begin to take them too fast. They start too fast and the body can't properly handle it. Or maybe, as in many people I've known, for example, they can't break down glutathione, which is another problem in the methylation pathway, which is related to the MTHFR gene. So you can't break down glutathione, so you'll come over here and you'll take methionine. But what if you can't break down the methionine? Well, you'll start to get sick from that, so you have to go break it down even further and take SAM-E. And there's quite a few different varieties of MTHFR. There's over 40 genetic mutations involved with MTHFR, and so it's a little more complicated than a quick, easy fix. And since it's a genetic mutation and we haven't figured out yet how to turn on those genes or turn off any ones that are disturbing us. Mostly we need to turn on these genes that are messed up in our methylation pathways. So since we don't know fully how to do that yet, the only thing that you can do with this condition, and it's what the geneticists who research it will tell you, is that you have to manage the condition. And so management is going to be the key in getting through this. But many people aren't as severely affected, or the particular genetic SNPs that they have make it easy for them to correct through diet and supplementation. And so for some people, it'll be very easy. A few slight changes and they're just great. They do great and they're fine. Others, it will be a little more tricky, but it's still a matter of management. It's only management. All you have to do is, like I always say, weed and feed. You're going to want to weed out the bad things and feed yourself the good things. So definitely you're going to want to detox. That's going to be one of the main keys in handling MTHFR. What happens is there's basically three areas that I personally have isolated where people run into problems, and this is where the collapse or the nightmare happens. If the kidneys, liver, and adrenals are not supported, you're going to have a problem. What happens is the liver or the kidneys get overtaxed and overburdened. They back up on each other, and soon the person will literally start to black out. They'll be unconscious to some degree. And to that degree, they will be blacked out. And so anything they take will stack up on the liver. So their medications will stack up on them and can cause a blackout. Any drugs or alcohol they do can stack up on them. Even supplements can stack up on them, or foods can stack up on them. And so the key is going to be to constantly detox. Toxins will be stuck in your body that other people are able to easily eliminate from the body. And for somebody who has MTHFR, they have a problem with elimination and detoxing. And so they get a buildup of, like I said, it could be anything, even foods. So the liver, the kidneys, and the adrenals, some of my best things for the liver are milk thistle extract and a liver optimizer, which I'll show you, I think, a picture of in a little bit. But milk thistle is just great for the liver and for helping it stay clean and detoxed. That's going to be key in your recovery. Liver, kidneys, and adrenals. Now, for your kidneys, cranberry is going to be tops, and you're probably going to need so much of it that, I'd recommend to do the juice as much as you can, but you may not be able to do enough. And so supplementation with a cranberry pill may be indicated. Now, the adrenal optimizer I told you about, this one from Jarrow Formulas is a very good one. I apologize again and again and again about my video making skills, but it's just not my forte. My forte is the message that I'm bringing you. So, perhaps somebody could send help. But this Jarrow Adrenal Optimizer has a very good formula, and I just highly recommend it. There's not anything in here that you don't need, and there's a lot of things that you do need. So, the liver optimizer, is going to be one of your good ones. And, like I said, liver, kidneys, and adrenals. Now, you're going to want to manage this condition by diet and foods. And these are the foods you're going to want. You're going to want fruits and vegetables, dairies and yogurts with good probiotics. So if you can get it, raw goat milk, goat milk yogurt. What is it? Goat yogurt. uh, anyway, those raw products that haven't been cooked and pasteurized, where they still have the good bacteria to help with your gut and your digestion if you still have leaky guts, symptoms, which many of you will start out with. Many of you will heal those problems and still be having problems. And that's because of the liver, kidneys, and adrenals. But you're going to want to continue to feed yourself good foods. And one of the best ways to get your methyls, of course, is your leafy greens. So you're going to want to do as much raw fruits and vegetables, raw goat dairy, and raw leafy greens as you can do to keep yourself as healthy as possible. Now, you're going to want healthy fats and minerals as well, and you can get those healthy fats and minerals through avocados, coconut oil, butter, even animal fats will be good for you. And you're going to want your EFAs out of your foods. Your EFAs are your essential fatty acids, which you'll also get in avocados. You'll get in olive oil, of course, your fishes, and some of your nuts. Also, flaxseed is one of my favorites to get EFAs from. Flaxseed oil. Now, I just mix flaxseed oil in with my smoothie in the morning, or my green drink, or my berry drink. You can see about those in some of my other videos, but I just mix water and either my green or my berry powder. I put in, squirt of flax oil, and we're all good. Now, you're going to want those EFAs. This is so important. I can't stress this enough, especially if you have some digestive problems in your family, or if you have cancer history in your family, things like that. Your essential fatty acids are so important, because without your essential fatty acids, your white blood cells are going to go right past your cancer or your pathogenic cells, and they're not going to take care of business. They're not going to TCB. So, you got to have your EFAs, or else your white blood cells are not going to take care of business. Got to have your essential fatty acids. Okay? Your white blood cells will not recognize pathogens as invaders if you don't have them. You have to have your EFAs. So, either eat enough of the right foods, or again, supplement with, the flax oil. But definitely get your EFAs, especially if you're concerned about cancer. Now, you're also going to have to supplement, because a lot of the things you're not going to get enough in your food. And one of the things that's going to be important in MTHFR is your vitamin K. Almost everybody that has MTHFR that I've looked at is low in vitamin K. Now, you're going to want, you see this says triple play vitamin K. Now, the reason that's important is, you see down here, yeah, it says MK2. Okay, on the back, you're going to see that this K2 actually has within it an MK4, and your MK4 is going to be important in regulating your genetics and hopefully helping to turn on some genes that will help in your methylation pathways. Okay, now when I get to the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly where you can get the testing and exactly how you can know where you're breaking down in your methylation pathways, which forms of MTHFR you have exactly and specifically, and that is going to lead you to answers on exactly what supplements that you're going to need and have to take, and which ones you're going to need to avoid. For example, some people don't need to take methionine. They can't take methionine because they can't break it down. So they need SAMe instead. Some people do perfectly fine on glutathione, and they break that down into methionine, and that breaks down into SAMe, and they're all good and fine. But for others, it doesn't work. So before this video is over, I'm going to show you how and where you're going to get your testing, and how that can show you exactly where you're breaking down in your methylation pathways and exactly what supplements you need. But the supplements that I'm going to go through in this video are pretty much for everyone, unless I tell you otherwise, like, making disclaimers about the methyl groups and about, the methionine and things like that. But almost everyone is going to need, the methylfolate. Almost everyone's going to need the methyl B12. Everyone's going to need the vitamin K. Everyone's going to need, their leafy greens, their good fats, their healthy fats, their essential fatty acids. And I have to apologize because I don't think I put it anywhere in this video, but coconut oil should be one of your best friends through this as well. It's very healing and has a lot of the things that you need in it. So I do some coconut oil every morning in my coffee. Some of you are going to be able to do coffee, some others aren't. Most of you are going to have to pulse it like you're going to pulse everything else. And we're going to talk about pulsing your supplements as well. But your basics are going to be, get your EFAs, get your methyl groups. You're going to want to detox. Of course, you're going to want to feed yourself good food, and you're going to want to get your supplements. Now, many of you will benefit from doing some H2O2, which is peroxide. And here we have some food-grade peroxide from Garden of Eden. Now, the thing about a food-grade peroxide from Garden of Eden that you're going to have to watch out for and be aware of is that when you're dealing with this food-grade peroxide, that's a 35%. Okay, it's not the 3.5% you buy in the drugstore. And the 3.5% you buy in the drugstore is not a food grade. It has stabilizers in it, and you don't want to be drinking it. So you want to do the Garden of Eden 35% food grade peroxide, but you're going to want to dilute that down. And you're going to want to be extremely careful about how you handle it. This stuff is very powerful. It'll eat your skin right off. So you want to handle it carefully. But many people do it. I've done it for years. There are many books. I started to load a few in this video, but like I said, I'm not very good at being a video producer. So I didn't get some of those in, but you can Google peroxide or peroxide books, and there are quite a few books out on health and peroxide. I know G. Edward Griffin wrote one, Dr. Douglas wrote one or two. There's quite a few. If you just Google, you can find some good books on using peroxide for health and how that's to be done. Okay, now another important nutrient for you to get is going to be alpha lipoic acid, and you want an R alpha lipoic acid form. I could go into it, but this video is going to be getting very long anyway. I do go into it in some of my other videos if you want to watch those, but just look for an R ALA, not a regular ALA. You don't want just regular alpha lipoic acid. You want the R lipoic acid. Another one that's going to be very friendly for you because of those high homocysteine levels. The high homocysteine levels will lead to thick blood and coagulation problems, which lead to heart attacks and strokes and pulmonary embolisms, blood clots in the lungs. And one of your best friends on that is going to be cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper is a vasodilator, but it also is a blood thinner, a natural blood thinner. I've had people avoid emergency room trips just by trying the cayenne. And so, you can try that for yourself. My sister, who's a nurse, was having some issues, and she had already been to the emergency room, and I made her daughter go get the cayenne pepper and sent her some empty capsules. And she had already been to the emergency room twice for heart issues, and she was having arrhythmias and chest fluttering. And so once she got the cayenne and started on it, the next time I talked to her, I said, wow, how are you doing? And she said, man, I've saved myself like over 3 trips to the emergency room because I just take the cayenne, the problem goes away, I'm good. And she said, I know it's working. And so we ended up putting her on a daily dose. A lot of people might want to be on a daily dose. I kind of take it intermittently. With MTHFR, your advice from all the doctors who treat MTHFR, and this advice is coming from the geneticist who researches MTHFR, which, by the way, I'll give you information on him before we're done too. The standard protocol is to pulse your supplements and even pulse your food. So, for example, if you take your supplements or your medications every single day, you could end up in problems because it'll stack up on the liver, it'll stack up on the kidneys, and you need time to flush your body out. And like I said, that's true of food as well. So what you want to do is you want to, take your supplements and foods until you start to feel bad. And then you want to slack off of some things and maybe everything. It depends on your condition. As you learn to work with it and manage it, you'll get better and better. And throughout this video, I'm going to give you tips for that and tell you exactly what you need to do. It's not scary. What is not scary is what you've been going through where you didn't know what was going on. Finding out how to handle it is not scary. It may seem complicated in the beginning, but trust me, it's just a matter of getting the education. You can listen to this video several times, and then I'm going to send you to some other extremely valuable resources. And I'm telling you, in no time, you're just going to be an expert. You're just going to be an expert in no time. And within a few months, you will be feeling better, doing better, managing better, helping yourself better, and we'll have you on a buddy system, and you'll just be doing great. So don't even be scared about anything. This is where you get empowered, not afraid. Where you've been has been fear. Where we're going is empowerment. So back to the cayenne. Anytime I feel like I'm having any blood clot issues or any heart issues, or my shoulders get stiff or have problems, I do the cayenne, and it has been a lifesaver for me. So you definitely want to have cayenne on hand. And I thought I had in here, okay, sorry, so I had my slides a little, I told you I'm not a video producer, okay? So you can actually make your own cayenne tincture at home if you want to. And this is the way I do mine. This is exactly what I have at home. I have a glass jar with a lid, and you just go to the grocery store and you want to just buy powdered cayenne pepper out of the spice aisle. And then go get a bottle of vodka, just the, cheap stuff if you want, or whatever you prefer, but just, either Everclear or vodka, whatever. And then you're going to pour your cayenne pepper into your jar, and then you're going to pour your alcohol over the top of it, and you're just going to let it sit. And as it sits, you're going to see it get darker and darker and darker. Now, mine, I put a lot of pepper and not too much alcohol because I wanted a really strong tincture, and that's what I use. And then I got empty gelatin capsules that you can get online. And whenever I'm having an issue, I just take the tincture that I made and I put it in capsules and I drink it down. Now, when you do that, you are going to want to make sure that you get plenty of water. Let me just fix my slides 1 second. Sorry again. You're going to want to make sure that when you're taking cayenne that you drink plenty of water. And the reason is that at the top of the stomach up here, you have this cardiac sphincter, okay? And they call it a cardiac sphincter because when anything splashes from the stomach and touches it, it can make you feel like you're having a heart attack. I hate to laugh, but it's happened to me before and it hurts. So I'm laughing like when people hit their funny bone. I've done it before, and it's kind of funny just because you're not dying. It just feels like it. But if you don't drink enough water when you take your cayenne capsule and you don't get it all the way down in the stomach and you get it stuck in the cardiac sphincter, then it's just going to feel really uncomfortable for about maybe 1 or 2 minutes, but they'll be very long minutes. So you just want to make sure you drink your water so you don't, run into the cardiac sphincter and have an issue, because it will feel like a heart attack. That's why they call it that. Okay, so that's it for the cayenne, and then now I guess we will finally move on to some of your other supplements. Of course, vitamin C, but I also thought I pulled up here, and I see now that I didn't. Iron. A lot of people have iron issues. But I'm going to recommend that whatever vitamins you have to take, try to get raw foods. See, this is whole food. So all that's in these capsules, that is a vitamin C formula from Vitamin Code, okay? And I don't make any money off of any of these guys I'm recommending. It's just stuff I've used and others have used, and so I highly recommend them because I know that they're safe. So what you're wanting is a plant-based source of your supplements as much as you can get it. Now, Vitamin Code's one of the first ones I go and check because they have, your zinc and your iron and your vitamin C and stuff like that. You're also going to want a vitamin D. I don't think I put up a pic for that, but you are going to want a vitamin D, like a D3. And most of you are probably going to have to take upwards, the upper end of D3 dosages. So a lot of doctors, if you're deficient, they're starting you out anywhere between 10 and 50,000 units, and so that's probably what you'll be taking. You can get your vitamin D levels tested at the doctor if you feel like you need that, but whenever I'm feeling kind of blue or whatever, I reach for my methyls, which in my case is the SAM-E and the methyl B12, and then I also reach for the vitamin D. So if I haven't been really dosing up on those and I'm feeling kind of down and depressed, that's what I reach for. Now, another thing that you're going to want to do is parasite cleanse, and there's lots of formulas out there, and lots of different supplements and foods and herbs that help with detoxing from parasites. And so, you know, of course, black walnut, wormwood, cloves, there's others, you know, quercetin, but sometimes with MTHFR you can't use quercetin, so that's why it's kind of important to get the testing and know. I myself, I don't do good with quercetin, but I do good with all these things we see on the screen. Also, you know, back in the day, and I'm a real advocate of grandma's advice and the quote-unquote old wives' tales, or wise tales, because there is a lot of wisdom in those old wise tales. So, I'm a big advocate of, you know, what did grandma do? And, one of the things that grandmas, many of you listening may have grandmas that did so, is spring cleaning, not only on the home but on the body, and they did a parasite cleanse every year. A lot of them would use what they call polk salad, and they would boil it several times and then have the polk salad. It's pretty harsh and pretty brutal. I myself prefer magnesium for that, or any of these things I said on the screen for deworming. They used to use turpentine even in the past, and you know, turpentine, it's still valid. I mean, it worked. They did it for you know, centuries. So, you know, the things that they used in the past to make themselves healthy, a lot of them are still valid, even though we have quote-unquote modern medicine. A lot of that old wisdom is still extremely valid, and I like to refer back to it as often as possible. So if you're lucky enough to still have a grandmother or great-grandmother around who was, you know, raised in the natural, and you have a chance to interview them, I would highly recommend that you do that and say, you know, look at what kind of foods they like to eat and how they prepared those foods, because a lot of that you will find is very valid scientifically, and people just left those ways behind, and now they don't prepare those foods in those ways and they get sick. And I'll give you a real good example. Beans and legumes, a lot of beans contain, most beans, some more than others, contain lectins, and lectins can be toxic to the body, and they cause you not to be able to digest, and they give you all kinds of problems. And but you can have beans if you know, minimize the lectins, and you can minimize those by soaking your beans. And soaking beans was always done before in the past, and nowadays people may rinse their beans, but then they just throw them in a pot and start cooking them. And I'm like, what are you doing? You gotta soak your beans. My mom always soaked her beans. My grandmother always soaked her beans. My dad soaked his beans. You soak your beans. And so why people don't do that anymore, it's It's a lost piece of wisdom that's causing health problems. So ask your grandma what they did for a spring cleaning on the body, because they probably did a deworming too. So there's a lot of those that if you'll talk to older people, oh, you can get so much from them. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry, I kind of got off on a little tangent. Let me try to continue on, see what we got next. Oh, sorry, back into Grandma's wisdom. Okay, so many of you, almost everybody, period, and you can get this from any really knowledgeable, educated healthcare practitioner who's into alternative or natural health. Even some of the doctors are now starting to finally catch on and agree and see that almost everybody is deficient in magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, potassium. Especially, I mean, one of the biggest ones, I mean, I guess if I had to go in order, I would say magnesium, calcium, potassium, and phosphorus would be order of deficiency. So magnesium and calcium are going to be two of your biggest ones, and this natural vitality, let me just move this a little bit. Calm plus calcium, and I never get the 16 ounce, get the 32 ounce, because you're going to go through it fast. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to do that. The Calm plus calcium has your magnesium and calcium, and it is a staple in my house, and anybody who I consult with or buddy with and teach about any kind of health problem, you got to get your calcium and magnesium. And both of these are extremely good at calming the nerves. So people with anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, chronic stress, anxiety disorders like panic attacks, any of that, you're going to want to increase your calcium and magnesium intake. And this is one of the best ways to do that, is just getting a supplement. Now, I mentioned Grandma's wisdom, and the reason I mention that in connection with the Calm plus calcium is because on the subject of anxiety and talking about Grandma's wisdom, what did Grandma always do to calm the kids down at night? Glass of warm milk. What does a glass of warm milk has in it? Magnesium, calcium, potassium, and phosphorus. Especially, now not so much your pasteurized stuff, especially, pasteurized, processed, enriched, fortified, blah, blah, store-bought milk is not going to be your best option. Your best option is going to be raw goat's milk. And oftentimes Grandma probably had some raw cow's milk or raw goat's milk is what she was giving you a lot of times anyway. But, that's exactly why they gave you a glass of warm milk at night, because it will help you sleep. It will relieve anxiety and tension and stress and calm you and help you to sleep. So, I know that dairy gets a bad rap, and even some MTHFR counselors or advisors or whatever gurus are saying, stay away from dairy. Ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. I highly recommend not only that you do dairy, but the goat's milk, yogurt, and goat's milk, raw milk, if you can get it. If you can't, one of my favorite milks, I don't know if you can get it where you're at, I'm hoping you can. If you can't get something raw, unpasteurized, one of the best store-bought milks that I have found is called Horizon. But only in the paper half-gallon carton. Something happens when they put it in that 1-gallon plastic milk jug, but in that paper carton, I've always hated milk my whole life, and I'm a huge fan of the Horizon milk. So, your magnesium, calcium, potassium, phosphorus, very important. Your Com plus calcium should be a staple in your house. If there's any MTHFR, or even if you've had any of the problems that we've discussed today. Okay, now, another thing that you're going to have to manage with this condition is going to be your stress. You're just going to have to, and you know what, I have to apologize for keep referring back to my own video, but it was easy for me. I'm not a video producer, so I'm just doing the best that I can, and I know my video skills kind of really are horrible, but bear with me. I hope the message is worth it to make you stick through my horrible video skills, and maybe God will send me a video producer angel that will come and help in our cause over here. By the way, I don't make any money off of any of this. I do it because in the Bible we're told to do two things, and that's spread the word and heal the sick. So that's what I'm trying to do. You know, we're also told my people perish for lack of knowledge, and certainly lack of knowledge of how to handle the body using God's medicines would cause one to perish. So that's why we work. That's why we do this. So I hope you'll like, subscribe, share, donate your time, whatever you got, tips. I'll take any help I can get, okay? Anyway, moving on. Sorry about that little tirade. So moving on. So, how do we diagnose, how do we know what form of MTHFR we have, and how to treat our specific MTHFR, our specific genetic SNPs? How do we know? Well, here's how we know. You're going to go to 23andMe, and you're going to order this Health Plus Ancestry service. And again, I don't make any money off of anybody or anything I recommend. But you're going to go to this 23andMe, go take the Health Plus Ancestry service. It's $199, okay? When you get that report back, it's going to give you all the raw data so that a geneticist can look at it and tell you what's going on. So then you're going to go over here, to Strategene. Okay? Trying to get that centered for you so you can see everything. You're going to go to Strategene. It's strategene.org. And you can go to strategene.org. This is done by Dr. Ben Lynch. He's the geneticist I've been referring to in this video. So you can look on YouTube for his videos. You can look here at the Strategene site. And then you can Google him, and he's got a couple of websites that give more data. But I promise you, you're going to get more data in my hour or whatever long video that I'm doing here than you will get anywhere else. So that's why I made the data to compile, the videos to compile the data like I do on all of my videos after 30 years in the natural healthcare field and a long and successful career in nutritional supplements. I realized that I was answering my calling, but I was working in the wrong arena. I was working in the business arena when this is actually a ministry, and I needed to stop and refocus and get into the right arena. So that's what I did. Anyway, you can go to Strategene, and what's going to happen when you go to Strategene, you're going to pay approximately $50. He says here 45. I thought I paid 50, but anyway, what you're going to get is you're going to get this genetic pathway analysis. Now, this genetic pathway analysis is going to show you everywhere where you're breaking down in the methylation process. So it's going to show you in that what are the things that speed up this gene and what are the things that slow down or inhibit this gene. And once you know that, you can adjust your supplements and that kind of thing. So I already knew going in that I couldn't take glutathione. And of course, when I looked at my pathway, I saw, of course, yes, I'm not breaking down glutathione. Well, turns out I wouldn't break down methionine either, so I ended up on SAMe. And so this is why your genetic pathway will be important, because rather than having to find out by trial and error, as I did before we knew about MTHFR, you can go here and you can find out the data, and then you can specifically target your diet and your supplements to your particular SNPs. Now, when you get this pathway planner back, it might be a little bit difficult to make sense of and wrap your head around. And so if you do need help with going over your genetic pathway analysis, you can always contact me and I'll be happy to help you with that. Again, I don't charge for anything. We don't do that. So anyway, we're just not even set up yet for donations, but anyway, if you contact us, we can help you interpret that if you're having problems with that. But that'll tell you exactly where you're breaking down and where you need to supplement and what you need to avoid and take out of your diet. Now, what else did I have? Oh, buddy system. We need to talk about the buddy system. Okay, you're just not going to be able to do this without using the buddy system. Well, you can, but it'll be long and hard and arduous and unnecessarily uncomfortable. So the problem is that once you begin to get affected by MTHFR, it causes a lot of brain fog and lethargy and inability to concentrate and memory loss, and so it's just best to, when you are having symptoms, it's best to call somebody who knows about the condition, who can quickly analyze where you at, you know, where you've been, where you're at, and where you need to go now in order to solve the problem. One of the biggest tips about that, though, is that once you teach people how to do it, and once you begin to get more familiar with it yourself and learn, it becomes much easier for you to do. And perhaps I'll make some follow-up MTHFR videos if people want them. If I get requests for them, I'll make some further videos where I can tell you in you know, less than 5 minutes, you can run through kind of a checklist that I teach people to use, and it'll tell you very quickly where you're having a problem. Like I said, we can pretty much look at somebody and tell where they're having a problem. Some of that I've gone over in other videos, but maybe I'll make another one and put some of that stuff in, because we are running at almost an hour now, so I know people's attention spans just aren't with me. So anyway, just know that if you just keep calm, get a buddy, everything's going to be fine. What we're doing now is empowering you where you've been disempowered in the past by not knowing what was going on. By knowing what was going on, we can turn your situation around much faster. Just like this, just like snapping a finger, we can turn your condition around by proper diet and proper supplementation and remember, I'm always here too. So, you can contact me, you can call me. I think my phone number's out there quite a bit. I know my information's out there quite a bit. You can message me through our Facebook or our YouTube channels, and I'm here for you to help you. So I'm gonna quickly recap for you what you're dealing with if you do have an MTHFR problem. We went through the symptoms, so you should be able to be identifying either yourself or your loved ones already. And the thing we're going to need to do is get the toxins out of your diet as much as you can, get the folic acid out of your diet as much as you can. And I'm going to tell you, even if you are buying a 100% whole wheat bread, turn it around and read the ingredients, because a lot of these manufacturers are just liars. They say it's 100% whole wheat, and then they throw in a little handful of white flour, which there goes your purpose for buying whole wheat flour. So I'll tell you, one of my favorites, though, if you're a breadaholic like my family, some of my favorite is Dave's Killer Bread. Oh my gosh, I love that stuff. I love Dave. Someday maybe I'll get to interview Dave. But I love Dave's Killer Bread. I hope you can get it wherever you're at. The only one I've used so far, but I've talked to other people who've used other of his, and I guess I'll get around to it eventually. But right now, I just love the one I'm using so much. It's got a green label, and it's like the 21 seed and grain, I think it's called. But if you're a breadaholic, you're just gonna have to read all the ingredients and try to eat foods that came out of the ground, or foods that God made, because that's God's medicine. That's what He gave you to eat for the body that you were given. Okay? For the body that you have, the universe has provided you with everything that you need to feed it and to keep it well. You have everything you need in God's food. We don't need drugs. I promise you don't have a Prilosec deficiency. They're just not there. And you don't have a Prozac deficiency. And you don't have any other drug deficiency. But what you may have is vitamin and mineral deficiencies. You may have methyl group deficiencies. You may have amino acid deficiencies. I know meat gets a really bad rap sometime, but honestly, there are some amino acids in red meat that some people with MTHFR need. And I know if I go without meat for a little while, even though I'm taking my supplements, I'm eating well, I'm getting my iron, I just get to where I have to have some meat, and then I start to think about it, and then once I have it, the body feels better. So I think it's the amino acids and other things in that meat that some people do need. Now, eventually maybe I can get completely off of them, because I've never liked meat since I was born, really. I think I was born a vegetarian. I never did like meat, but I had a family of southern hunters and cooks who made really good meat and barbecue, and so they did train me to eat meat and to enjoy it. But the body's also not, most bodies aren't equipped to handle it every day. And so I don't eat a lot of red meat, but I eat a little, enough to make my body feel good when I can't get whatever I need from somewhere else. So don't feel guilty if you have to eat meat. And I'm going to tell you another thing on the subject of guilt. Many people who have MTHFR will have NED, which is NAD energy deficiency, or will have just low NAD levels. And your NAD is your B3, your coenzymated. It's in the niacin family, niacinamide. It's a particular form. There's several different forms of niacin. There's niacinamides, there's nicotinamides, there's the whole family of niacin-based supplements, and that whole family of nicotinamides or niacinamides that are so very closely related can be the cause of people's cigarette addictions. So I know some of you who think cigarettes are the cause of cancer. Not true. And that cigarettes are evil. I know you're not going to like this message, but for some people, those cigarettes are actually helping them. Because of the nicotinamides in it, they give the adrenals a little boost, so it does help with those people's adrenals, keeping those going, and supplies them with some energy, some NAD to feed the ATP, the body's energy molecules. So for some people that are smoking cigarettes, I hope you non-smokers will lay off and realize that if somebody is smoking cigarettes, it's because they're having adrenals and NAD issues, and they have deficiencies, and their adrenals are affected. So please keep that in mind. Stop judging your smokers so harshly, and instead direct them to some supplementation that will help feed their adrenals and give them the NAD pH, the NAD H, the NAC, the B3, the coenzymated B3, or whatever form it is that they need. And they can figure that out through just playing with them. I do a coenzymated B3. Sometimes I do a NAD pH because of my methyl pathways. But anyway, the point is that if people are smoking cigarettes, it's because they need them. It's not because they're weak. It's because they need the nicotinamides in it. So lay off a little bit, okay? Same with the people eating meat. Don't judge too harshly because you don't know what somebody else's body needs. Okay? And while we're on it, I just gotta say, same thing with marijuana. I know a lot of people think, marijuana is a bad drug. Well, you know what? God made that. That grows straight out of the ground, and every mammal has an endocannabinoid system in it. Now, why would we have an endocannabinoid system if we're not supposed to have cannabinoids? Why would we have cannabinoid receptors in our body if we're not supposed to have cannabinoids? So, people that want to smoke weed every day probably need that for the components that they're getting out of that. There was one more that I was going to mention that people seem to get upset about quite a bit, that they just need to, addictions. Alcohol and drugs. I know people want to blame people who do alcohol and drugs, and I've been affected by it too, and I know the behavior is horrible. I've been the victim of alcoholic and drug abuser behavior before too, so it's not that I'm minimizing the behavior. It's terrible, it's awful, but you also have to realize that person's doing that drug or that alcohol because they're trying to get something that they're not getting out of their diet. And many of them, like, for example, with alcohol, their brain has completely switched. Like they probably started using the alcohol to either to soothe pain or even sometimes to boost the adrenals, because it's so toxic that when somebody takes it, you know, the liver and the adrenals and all that go like jump into action. And so the person might get a burst of energy from having alcohol in it. You know, some of you may know somebody who drinks alcohol, and rather than it be a depressant, they, you know, they start talking like they're on speed, and they won't go to sleep, and they won't pass out, and you sometimes wish they would. That's because it stimulated their adrenals. And probably without that alcohol, their adrenals are not, you know, functioning well. And alcohol's not a good solution for that. What we need to do is get the adrenals up and functioning. Some of them do it because, you know, their brain chemistry has switched. They're no longer, you know, burning fat in the body as fuel and in the brain as fuel. And so now they're burning sugars and alcohols as fuel in the brain. And so they can't really think until they, you know, get a drink, and then they start, you know, then the brain cells start clicking because they've been starved. And so these people need to have their diets modified to where they're getting the proper fats and they're burning the proper things. They're not burning carbs. They're not burning sugars and alcohols. They're burning good fats, like, you know, the fats in avocados and in flaxseed oil and in coconut oil and in bacon. Yay, bacon. See, so it's not all bad. We can have, you know, some of our bad foods. You don't have to give up your cigarettes. You don't even have to give up your alcohol or drugs right away. What we have to do is feed you what you need, and you'll give up those things on your own when the body doesn't need them anymore. So if you have loved ones that are addicted, please, let's feed them what they need. Let's get them to understand what's happening to them. It is a disease. It's probably a genetic disease. It's probably MTHFR or one of those ugly little SNPs. So, or maybe they just, you know, had some kind of trauma and they used those supplements, and then that you know, ended up converting what they were burning, and we just need to get them burning the right fuel again. So, so we can do that. We can get, you know, these people educated what may be happening with their bodies and how it can be permanently fixed. You know, I've seen people with drug and alcohol addictions get a couple little supplements, and all of a sudden the addiction's gone. So let's start to look at these people in a different way. Let's start to look at them not as junkies, not as addicts, not as filthy smokers or nasty meat eaters or whatever it is that you're opposed to or that you don't like, either in yourself or in someone else. Let's don't look at it as this. Let's stop the shame and the harshness. And let's look at this for what it is, which is illness. Okay? It's illness, and we can fix it. And we can fix it with God's medicine. So, I hope this has been helpful today. This kind of seems like a good place to end off. And I hope the information's been helpful to you. If there's other questions, or if you want me to make a further video, I think I can make a short one, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I would hope, on, you know, how you can just look at somebody, and by looking at their face or their body, we can figure out what's going on with them pretty quickly. And a lot of that, we know already what to do and what they need without having to spend the money and without having to do the testing. It's just a matter of learning to spot the symptoms and know what you're seeing when you're seeing the liver, the kidneys, the adrenals, looking at a person's gait, their walk, their body shape, their face. And we have lots of those little clues that we can teach you, and then very quickly you can assess yourself or somebody else and feel better. So The solution is going to be God's medicine, and we hope that this video has helped you today. Please like, subscribe, and share. That's how we grow. That's how we get our message out. And that is the most important thing, is our message. We can be healed with God's medicine. We don't need sorcery. We don't need the drugs. And that is the definition of sorcery. The definition of sorcery is pharmakon, pharmacia, casting spells using poisons. So let's don't do that anymore, and let's use God's medicine. And I hope you all have a very wonderful day. Please like, subscribe, and share, and thank you so much for joining us today.